I woke up one day and was having vision issues, could hardly see, knocked out my hearing, which threw off my equilibrium.
Ashton Kutcher. You probably know him from the '70s show where he played the goofy Michael Kelso.
It always has been. It got changed when I was like 19 and I became an actor.
Or maybe you remember him as the host of Punk'd, pranking Hollywood's biggest stars.
I think the difference was I called home and I was like, I'm not coming home because New York was so crazy to me. I was like, this is insane.
But Ashton Kutcher is more than just an actor. He's a successful investor in tech companies like Uber, Airbnb, and Spotify. But the wildest truth about him is that his career almost ended before it even started. He was arrested when he was younger, and it could have changed everything. So what happened? Why was he arrested? And where would he be today if things had gone differently? Brotherhood and hardships. To understand Ashton Kutcher's journey, we have to go back to the very beginning, the moment that changed everything. It all started on the morning Diane Kutcher went into labor. She thought she was about to welcome one baby into the world, but life had other plans. After delivering her first son, Ashton, doctors gave her unexpected news. There was another baby on the way. Just 5 minutes later, Michael Kutcher was born, but his arrival was far from smooth. He weighed only 4 pounds, which immediately set off alarms for the medical staff. Lack of oxygen during birth led to complications, and later doctors diagnosed him with cerebral palsy. Growing up in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, the Kutcher family handled Michael's condition with strength and positivity. They never treated him differently or let his diagnosis define him. Instead, they celebrated both boys for their unique talents. Ashton, even as a child, showed unwavering devotion to his twin brother. He would not even go to sleepovers unless Michael was invited too. But behind his protective nature, Ashton struggled with an unspoken guilt. He was perfectly healthy while Michael faced challenge after challenge. That guilt never really left him. Then came the moment that truly tested the brothers' bond. It happened in 8th grade. Michael started feeling sick, nothing too serious at first, just flu-like symptoms. But his condition quickly worsened, and doctors soon discovered the terrifying truth. He had viral myocarditis, a rare condition that made his heart swell dangerously. The news was devastating. Michael had only 3 to 4 weeks to live. The hospital became their second home. Ashton, just a teenager at the time, watched helplessly as his brother's health declined. Then, in a moment that would haunt him for years, Michael flatlined. His heart stopped. Desperate and willing to do anything, Ashton made a shocking offer. He told his parents he wanted to give Michael his own heart. He was convinced that because they were twins, he would be a perfect match. He was willing to sacrifice his own life to save his brother. It was an unthinkable moment. But then something incredible happened. Just 24 hours later, a donor heart from a tragic accident in another state became available. Michael underwent a successful transplant, and against all odds, he survived. This experience changed both brothers forever. Michael became an advocate for organ donation and disability rights, turning his struggle into a mission to help others. Ashton, on the other hand, carried the weight of what had happened in a different way. He felt guilt, gratitude, and a deep understanding of just how fragile life really is. But just when the Kutcher family thought they had overcome their biggest challenge, another major obstacle was about to shake things up, one that could have cost Ashton everything. By the time he reached his senior year of high school, Ashton had built a strong reputation. He was a straight-A student, popular and active in sports. But one reckless decision changed everything. It all started with a plan that seemed simple at first, like breaking into his high school to steal test answers. That's right, Ashton and his cousin thought they could outsmart the system, but instead of getting away with it, they triggered a silent alarm. Within minutes, police were on the scene, and Ashton Kutcher, the golden boy, was arrested. When his stepdad got the call, his response was brutal. Instead of rushing to help, he simply said, "Have a good night," and hung up. That moment hit hard. The consequences were severe. Ashton was sentenced to 3 years of probation and 180 hours of community service. He was also banned from school sports, stripped of his National Honor Society status, and even dumped by his girlfriend just before prom. In a matter of days, everything he had worked for came crashing down. This was not just a mistake, it was a wake-up call. After high school, Ashton went on to study biochemical engineering at the University of Iowa, hoping to find a cure for his brother's condition. But instead of focusing on academics, he found himself in a downward spiral. Partying became his escape. Wild nights, blackouts, and reckless behavior, it got to the point where he was even evicted from his apartment. His once promising future seemed to be slipping away. But life had other plans. A random encounter at a bar led to someone encouraging Ashton to enter a modeling competition. He took a chance and won, which led him to drop out of college and move to New York City to pursue a career in modeling. That decision put him on the path to Hollywood, a place he never expected to be. What started as a moment of failure somehow became the turning point of his life. Without that arrest, without that wake-up call, would Ashton Kutcher have ever made it to where he is today? It is funny how life works. So how did he make his name? Was getting recognition in such a saturated field easy for him? Rebellion and fame? Not at all. Ashton Kutcher's rise to fame was not simple and not at all easy. His journey began in Iowa, where he was just another college student trying to figure out his future. At the time, he was studying biochemical engineering at the University of Iowa, with hopes of finding a cure for his twin brother's medical condition. But things were not going as planned. He was struggling academically, partying a little too much, and had no real direction. Then came a night that changed everything. At the Airliner bar in Iowa City, a talent scout spotted Ashton and made an unexpected suggestion. He said that he should try modeling. Now at this point, Ashton had no plans of stepping into the fashion world, but with nothing to lose, he decided to take a chance. He entered the Fresh Faces of Iowa modeling competition and won. That one win was all it took for him to realize that maybe his future was not in a lab, but in front of a camera. He made a bold choice. He dropped out of college and moved to New York City to pursue modeling full-time. At 6 feet 2 inches, with sharp features and undeniable charisma, Ashton quickly stood out. He didn't waste any time either. At the International Modeling and Talent Association convention, he might not have taken home the top prize, but he did something even better. He got noticed. Soon, he signed a contract with Next Modeling Agency, one of the biggest in the industry. From there, his career took off. He landed major campaigns for Calvin Klein, became a face for Zoo York, and started building a name for himself in the fashion world. But deep down, Ashton knew modeling was not his end goal. He wanted something bigger. Ashton had been modeling for a while when an opportunity in acting came his way. A new comedy sitcom was casting in Los Angeles, and he decided to audition. But the interesting thing is that on the same day, he landed 2 different TV roles. One was a drama about cowboy surfers called Wind on Water, and the other was a quirky comedy sitcom, That 70s Show. Now he had to make a choice. One was a serious drama, while the other was a lighthearted comedy. Ashton trusted his instincts and chose That 70s Show, and it turned out to be the best decision of his career. The other show got canceled after just 6 episodes. Ashton's role as Michael Kelso made him an instant favorite. The character was written to match his natural comedic timing, and he played it perfectly. His starting salary was not much, but it didn't matter. He had officially broken into Hollywood. But the entertainment industry was not just about fame and fun. It had its challenges, and Ashton was about to face one of his biggest ones yet. You see, while Ashton was making a name for himself on That 70s Show, he had another big idea. He thought about doing a hidden camera prank show. The original concept was called Harassment, but the unfortunate thing is, it didn't go as planned. The first version of the show involved pranking regular people, and things got out of control fast. In January 2002, a married couple, James and Lorianne Ryan, checked into a Las Vegas hotel expecting a normal vacation. Instead, they walked into a fake crime scene. There was blood, a lifeless body, and a terrifying setup. They panicked and tried to escape, but were stopped by actors pretending to be security guards and paramedics. This was not the fun prank Ashton and his team had hoped for. It was a disaster. The Ryans didn't laugh, they sued. A $10 million lawsuit was filed against MTV and Ashton's production company Catalyst, claiming emotional distress, fraud, and invasion of privacy. And this was not the first lawsuit MTV had faced over pranks. Just a few months earlier, they had been sued after 2 teenage girls were sprayed with human waste during a prank for another show, Dude, This Sucks. At this point, Punk'd was on the verge of being canceled before it even aired. Instead of giving up, Ashton and his team reworked the entire concept. Instead of pranking regular people, they decided to only prank celebrities. And that one change saved the show. The first episode, which aired in March 2003, featured Justin Timberlake, and it was brutal. The prank was that fake government agents showed up at Timberlake's house claiming he owed $900,000 in unpaid taxes. They seized his furniture, guitars, and even his dog. That day, Justin almost cried. The reaction was priceless, and the audience loved it. Punk'd became an instant success, and soon it was one of the biggest shows on MTV. By season 2, viewership jumped 55% with over 7.4 million people tuning in. Ashton was not just an actor anymore, he was a producer, an entrepreneur, and a pop culture icon. The show's impact was huge. The phrase, "Am I being punked?" became a common joke, and celebrities everywhere started second-guessing reality, wondering if Ashton was secretly watching with a hidden camera. But while the show was thriving, Ashton's real life took a dark turn. Even as he was making America laugh, Ashton was dealing with something far more serious. Because behind the scenes, something was about to happen that would change him forever. So, what happened on that February night in 2001? Hollywood scandals. On February 21, 2001, Ashton Kutcher was set to go on a first date with Ashley Ellerin, a 22-year-old fashion student living in Hollywood Hills. It was supposed to be just a casual evening, but neither of them knew that a serial killer was watching. Ashton was running late that night. When he finally arrived at Ashley's house, he knocked on the door but got no response. He tried again, still nothing. Maybe she had stepped out, or maybe she was annoyed that he was late. It was frustrating but not alarming. Then he looked through the window. What he saw made him pause. There were red stains on the floor. His first thought was that probably spilled wine. After all, Ashley was getting ready for their date, and maybe she had accidentally knocked something over. With no reason to suspect anything was wrong, Ashton left, assuming the night just was not happening. But what he didn't know was that inside that house, Ashley had been murdered, brutally stabbed by a man later known as the Hollywood Ripper, Michael Gargiulo. The next day, everything fell into place in the worst way possible. When Ashton learned what had happened, shock turned into panic. He immediately contacted the police, admitting, "My fingerprints are on the door." He had no idea what the crime scene looked like, but now he feared that he might somehow be a suspect. The investigation revealed that Ashley had been targeted by Gargiulo, a serial predator who had been stalking her for months. He had broken into her home that night and attacked her just minutes before Ashton arrived. That meant Ashton had unknowingly stood outside a crime scene, completely unaware of what had happened inside. The horror of that night stayed with him for years. And though he had nothing to do with the crime, being so close to it haunted him. But the nightmare was not over. For nearly 2 decades, the case remained open as authorities worked to bring Gargiulo to justice. Finally, in 2019, Ashton was called to testify in court, giving his account of that night to help establish the timeline of Ashley's murder. It was a painful moment. He had to relive every detail, recalling how close he had been to unknowingly walking into a brutal crime scene. His testimony was crucial as it confirmed that Ashley was already dead by the time he arrived, strengthening the prosecution's case. But just as the trial was wrapping up, something unexpected happened. A new controversy surfaced. Out of nowhere, Chrissy Bixler, a former girlfriend of Ashton's That 70s Show co-star Danny Masterson, posted a strange message on social media. She wrote, "Did you forget I was there? You were on speakerphone the night you called Danny on February 21, 2001. I heard everything. I heard the plan." Her message was vague, but it implied something bigger, that Ashton may have known more than he had shared. But about what exactly? She never gave specifics, and there was no evidence to support her claims. Ashton never addressed the allegation, and the case remained focused on Gargiulo. But the timing of Bixler's post led to speculation and unanswered questions about what really happened that night. In the aftermath of Ashley's murder and the growing controversies, Ashton threw himself into his work. His next big project, Just Married, which was a romantic comedy with Brittany Murphy, became a box office hit, making over $100 million worldwide. Off-screen, he and Brittany had a brief real-life romance, though it didn't last long. But even with his career thriving, not all the attention was positive. That same year at the Golden Raspberry Awards, Ashton was nominated for Worst Actor for 3 different films in 2003. Critics were not impressed, but at that point he had bigger things on his mind. The events of February 21, 2001 followed him for years, and even as he continued to build his career, the memories of that night and the questions surrounding it never fully disappeared. But there was something that distracted him a little, and this was his business ventures. This was a clever shift in career as he became one of the most successful investors in Silicon Valley. So how did it happen? Tech ventures. Ashton Kutcher's career took an unexpected turn, but it was not by accident. His transition from Hollywood star to tech entrepreneur and advocate was driven by curiosity, strategy, and deeply personal experiences. As his acting career grew, Kutcher began looking for something more meaningful beyond entertainment. Hollywood had given him fame, but he knew it would not last forever. While most celebrities stuck to endorsements and traditional business ventures, Kutcher immersed himself in the tech world. He was not just looking for a profitable side project, he wanted to understand the future of technology. He studied market trends, built relationships with industry leaders, and learned about startup culture. Unlike many celebrity investors, he didn't just hand over money to emerging companies. He got involved, asked questions, and made decisions based on research rather than hype. His early investments in companies like Uber, Airbnb, Skype, and Spotify showed that he had an eye for the next big thing. These were not random bets. He recognized the potential of disruptive technology before the rest of the world caught on. By the time he co-founded A-Grade Investments, he had already turned a $30 million fund into $250 million in just 6 years. This success led to the launch of Sound Ventures, which went on to back over 60 companies in different industries. His hands-on approach set him apart. He did not just write checks, he attended tech conferences, worked closely with founders, and contributed ideas that shaped the businesses he invested in. But for Kutcher, success was not just about money. His investments soon reflected a desire to create social impact. His most significant shift came when he co-founded Thorn, an organization dedicated to fighting child sex trafficking. His motivation stemmed from a growing awareness of the darker side of technology. As he learned more about how traffickers use the internet to exploit victims, he realized that the same technology that connected people could also be used to harm them. He wanted to change that. Thorn developed Spotlight, a software tool designed to help law enforcement track down human traffickers and rescue victims. Before this technology existed, investigations could take years, but Spotlight made it possible to locate traffickers in weeks, sometimes even days. The results were undeniable. Since its launch, the software has helped identify over 24 victims and has been used by more than 2,700 law enforcement agencies. In 2017, Kutcher testified before Congress about the horrors of child exploitation, sharing how he had seen footage of children the same age as his own being abused. He spoke about how technology could be used to stop these crimes, emphasizing that Thorn's work had already saved lives. Kutcher continued to push for change, even running the New York City Marathon in 2022 to raise over $1 million for Thorn. His dedication to using technology for good earned him widespread respect. But just as he was being recognized for his advocacy, his reputation took a hit that no one saw coming. In 2023, Danny Masterson, Kutcher's former co-star from That 70s Show, was convicted of sexually assaulting 2 women. The trial was long and difficult, with multiple women coming forward with disturbing accusations. When the guilty verdict was announced, many expected Kutcher to speak out in support of the victims. Instead, he and his wife, Mila Kunis, wrote character letters to the judge asking for leniency in Masterson's sentencing. In his letter, Kutcher described Masterson as exceptionally honest and a role model, stating that he did not believe he posed a danger to society. He even argued that Masterson's daughter should not have to grow up without her father. The backlash was immediate. People questioned how someone who had spent years fighting against sexual abuse could defend a convicted predator. The contradiction between his advocacy work and his support for Masterson was impossible to ignore. Realizing the damage, Kutcher and Kunis released a video apology. They explained that they had written the letters at the request of Masterson's family, who wanted to show the judge a different side of him. They insisted that they never intended to undermine the victims' experiences, but for many, the apology was not enough. The controversy overshadowed years of Kutcher's work with Thorne, raising questions about whether his activism was genuine or if it was just good public relations. As the backlash grew, Kutcher quietly stepped back from public appearances. While Thorne continued its mission, his involvement became less visible. The scandal had permanently changed the way people saw him. It highlighted the difficult reality that personal loyalty and moral responsibility don't always align. Kutcher's career has been defined by reinvention. He went from a small-town troublemaker to a Hollywood star, then became one of the smartest investors in Silicon Valley. He built a company that helped thousands of victims, proving that technology could be a force for good, but his decision to support Masterson will always be a part of his story. It became the moment that made people question his judgment, forcing him to reconsider his role as an advocate. His story is a reminder that no one is untouchable. A single choice can change everything, no matter how much good someone has done. The question now is not whether Kutcher made an impact, it is whether he can rebuild the trust he lost. Time will tell if he can find a way to move forward. But what do you think? Can Ashton Kutcher repair his reputation, or has this controversy permanently changed how people see him? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more stories that uncover the truth behind Hollywood's biggest names.